is watching this sick shit. This is sickening.
Got your blood clot, man.
This man is right. Stop looking at those disgusting SpongeBob feet pics.
Stop it. Get some help.
And
Bam.
I can help you. Start watching Boy Dilly instead. I make Dead by Daylight videos and I got a very big cock. Also, look at this beautiful dog. Yeah, he's dead now. But anyway, don't forget to subscribe to my channel to make me a happy little boy. Also, you can become my supporter by clicking that jingly wingly join button. I will play Dead by Daylight with you, you will get an exclusive Discord role, and you will get to see some exclusive secret videos. Join now and satisfy your inner needs. Anyway, let's get straight into the video. So, the new killer, the Singularity. Is it a good killer or is it a bad killer? 3 weeks ago I already made a video about how the Singularity sucks. And it's not like this motherfucker gave me a blowjob. Ew. The real reason why I thought that the Singularity sucked is that on the PTB when I tried playing as this killer, it wasn't too much fun to play as this killer, because survivors would always have EMPs in their hands. Basically on the PTB, EMPs were overpowered and survivors could disable my biopods for most of the match, which means that I had to play like an M1 killer most of the time. It felt extremely frustrating and annoying, but on the other hand, it was extremely fun to play against the Singularity as a survivor. It felt extremely powerful to be the survivor who could counter this killer, and it was funny because immediately after playing against the Singularity, I was like, wow man, it really feels great to play against this killer, but if I played as this killer, I mean that would be a torture. And that's exactly why I made a video, The New Killer Sucks. It's because it absolutely sucked to feel like this M1 powerless killer, because EMPs were too overpowered and survivors just felt like gods playing against me. At first I thought I was the only person complaining about this, but it turns out that basically almost every single content creator complained about the same issue. So my initial thought was like, hey man, they got to nerf EMPs. And guess what? This killer has received some buffs. Long story short, what the developers did is made that survivors holding an EMP no longer are able to see supply crates. Number of supply crates have been decreased from 7 to 5, and also they increased the time it takes for EMPs to be generated from 80 to 90 seconds. These are very little buffs to the new killer, but they all add up, and in theory they make this killer much stronger, and these buffs remove a bunch of that frustration when you have to deal with these annoying survivors. But the question is, are these buffs enough to make this killer a good killer? Or is this yet another trash killer like the School Merchant? And honestly, this is pretty subjective and I can't talk for everybody. It seems like people are truly divisive about this killer. I see a bunch of people disliking my videos and telling me that I'm wrong by saying that this killer is bad because this killer is actually very good. Yet my friends actually hate this killer, and some of my friends are telling me that this has to be one of the worst chapters of the year, and there are basically no people who are like, this is an average killer, he's not bad but he's not good. No, people are pretty divisive about this killer. People are either saying that this is one of the best new killers ever, or they're saying that this is one of the worst new killers ever. So which is it? Well, I can't comment for a lot of those people. I got my thoughts on this killer, and that's what I'm gonna share with you in this video. So if you disagree with me, that's completely fine. I respect that. Leave your comment in the comment section down below. I will check comments later on and I will reply to them. I like my commenters. I really love you guys. But anyway, let me talk about what I think about this killer after playing him on the live servers. Now I will say something that I mentioned in my previous videos, and I still stand by my words. I think that this killer is visually stunning. I absolutely love the way this killer looks. I think that visually the knight was a disappointment, and the school merchant was even more disappointing than the knight. The only thing that I liked about the school merchant's look was her thickness. She honestly has a thick ass, and I made a video about the thickest killer in the game, which is the school merchant. You can find this video on my channel. Spoiler alert, the Singularity is not a thick killer. I think everybody understands it. But I think that this game absolutely benefits from crazy looking unique killers. And when it comes to originality, I mean, this killer is the first cyborg killer in Dead by Daylight. And this killer is big, obviously not as big as my cock, which is 6.5 inches by the way. But this killer is big, and it was terrifying for me to play against this killer for the first time on the PTB. And it's great. It's a great feeling to get to play against a killer that looks absolutely scary. And I love it. Dead by Daylight is technically a horror game. So I think whoever designed this killer visually, this killer looks awesome, and developers did a very great job with that. Also, he has got these voice lines that are hilarious, and his Mori, absolutely perfect. And I'm sorry if I sometimes call this killer he, him. I mean, this killer is a robot, and honestly, I think that we should pronounce robots as it. I think that he is for male, she is for female, it is for the Singularity. But anyway, that doesn't matter. I think that visually this killer looks great, and I really like the uniqueness of this killer's power. We had no killer before who is able to place cameras all around the map. Like, this killer can place biopods anywhere you want to place them, and then you can look through these biopods at any given moment. Even if survivors use EMPs to disable your biopods, they can never prevent you from looking through these biopods. You can still look through them and see where survivors are, what they are doing. For example, the school merchant was the first drone killer in Dead by Daylight. It is still the only drone killer in Dead by Daylight, and from a drone killer I expected a power to be able to place your drone and then to look through drone's camera anytime you want to. But they missed it with the school merchant, and instead they created the most boring killer that is possible to create. They didn't miss it this time with the Singularity. They nailed this killer, and I really like the design of this killer's power. And the final thing that I really like about this killer is his overclock mode. Overclock mode is not perfect. I mean, it has a bunch of flaws, which I will talk about in a minute or two, but it's cool that whenever you teleport close to a survivor, you enter this overclock mode for a few seconds, and then you are able to instantly break pallets, instantly vault. It basically enhances every single ability of yours. I love that it stacks with so many perks. For example, brutal strength, bamboozle, it stacks with save the best for last, and a few other perks. For example, fire up. I have never thought that this perk would be useful on any killer, yet it's very useful on this killer. So honestly, I'm truly enjoying my time with the Singularity, because finally I'm able to try some perks that I thought that I would never try in my life. As you can see, I really like many aspects of this killer, which makes this chapter a pretty cool chapter overall. But now let's talk about the flaws of this killer, and there are a lot of flaws that this killer has. One thing that I'm gonna tell you immediately is that as cool as I find this power, and I really love the uniqueness of this power, as I mentioned before, I don't feel like this power is for me, and I don't feel like I will be playing as this killer a month from now or 2 months from now. I will probably play him for a bit, and then I will stop playing as this killer. I will move on to my previous killers. But with that out of the way, this killer feels a bit stronger than it felt to play as this killer on the PTB, yet it still feels very annoying to deal with EMPs. I know that EMPs got nerfed, but they were not nerfed that harshly, so survivors still don't have much of a problem with countering the Singularity, which means that, yeah, most of the time, maybe not for the whole match, but most of the time, you might feel like you are an M1 killer. Honestly, it depends on your opponents. If survivors are really desperate to counter you and repair generators without any problems, any risks of you teleporting straight up to them, especially when you get to play against Survive with Friends teams, well, these survivors are extremely difficult to deal with, and it might feel as frustrating as it felt to play as this killer on the PTB. Now, yes, this killer is stronger now, but I don't like some aspects of this killer's power. For example, after teleporting to a survivor, you are unable to move for a few milliseconds. Basically, you are stuck for a couple milliseconds, and it might not sound like a big deal, but survivor is able to gain some distance from you, and you don't really feel that powerful, and it's very frustrating when you teleport just to hit that survivor, and then you click your mouse one button as soon as you teleport, yet you have to wait for those few milliseconds to pass. Another frustration is that the overclock mode, which basically enhances every single ability of yours, it is only there for a couple of seconds, which feels useless most of the time. Now, I know it would be extremely overpowered to increase the duration of the overclock mode, but they could carefully add at least a couple extra seconds, because most of the time you are unable to do shit when you are in your overclock mode, and it honestly just feels disappointing, especially when you know that survivors are able to counter your power most of the time with these things called EMPs. I'm not saying that EMPs are bad. This killer in theory is very strong, and just remove EMPs from the game and then you will see how this killer is better than the nurse. So this killer has to have some sort of a counter, because else this killer could spawn a bunch of biopods next to every single generator and just camp. You know, it's very easy, and it's actually very strong that you can place your biopod next to a hooked survivor and just camp that survivor. But I honestly like this mechanic, because that's the only way to camp that feels truly rewarding, and you can be miles away from that hooked survivor, and then immediately, as soon as someone comes to save that survivor, just shoot at that survivor and infect them, or straight up teleport close to them. And it happened to me multiple times when I got a hit that way, and it felt extremely rewarding. So yeah, overall, in conclusion, this killer is not a bad killer. This killer is better than the School Merchant in many ways, especially visual design. It's better than the Knight in my opinion, but this killer is not a strong killer. Where would I put him on a tier list? I would put this killer, I think, in the mid to lower B tier, but I really need to play as this killer more to know for sure. I like the uniqueness of his build possibilities, and I love to experiment with this killer, but overall I don't really like this killer. This killer is not my kind of a killer. I know it might sound confusing because I said that I like this killer, but I don't like this killer. What I mean is that I like the way this killer looks, sounds, feels. I like originality of this killer, but I don't see myself playing with this killer for a long time. Anyway, that's my opinion, that's my thoughts. I don't hold to my opinion that this killer is trash, but if you think that this killer is trash, I get what you're saying, because this killer has a bunch of flaws. But so does Sadako, and so does Trapper, and so does Freddy. There are so many killers in Dead by Daylight that has very annoying flaws, and this killer is definitely not an exception. That's my thoughts. Don't forget to subscribe for more Dead by Daylight content. I'll see you later. Ciao.